I return. Good evening. We're picking up roughly where we left off last time. In what I presume to be the final world of the game. One or more. I don't know if we can afford this one. Hold on, it's a little bit loud in my ears. That's better. Is this just going to be a straight line? Not entirely. Alright. But somewhat resembling one. Oh. These things are tough. But not immune to electrocution, so works for me. Now, I remember being told last time that, like, this world was, like, the world to grind in. And I'm not sure if that's, like, by experience quantity or because, like, the drops are really good. Presumably experience quantity. I don't know. I haven't actually played anything. I didn't do any grinding off camera. I'll figure it out. If I keep running into things that are immune to lightning, it's certainly going to take a while, if nothing else. So hopefully that doesn't happen too much. Avoiding caster-type enemies in the overworld is probably my best bet for that. Never mind, they're inviting themselves. I can at least electrocute everything around them. This is problematic. Alright, I'm gonna leave. I'm glad that I can just opt out of being in an encounter. It's the sort of thing that, like, you take for granted sometimes. Oh, there's Namine and Fake Riku. And what's his face? Have you guys seen fan art of, like, the pink-haired guy using, like, a scythe? Like, people really like him? I wonder if I can fit more thunders into my deck since I've leveled up a bit since... Oh no. I've leveled up a bit since... I've leveled up a bit since I made it. There we go, max hit point 200, finally. Let's see if I can fit some more Sorry, there's like something abrasive in my throat. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I should put in some summons for dealing with magic enemies. Like, Simba's not fast, but he does get the job done. Yeah, maybe I throw in some Simbas. Okay, so I make room for 2 more lightning bolts. Sorry, 2 more thunders. And then let's put the Simbas ahead of the Kingdom Key. Okay, that's not too bad, I think. And hopefully that helps me do a better job of punching through magic-resistant enemies. Seven or higher. I actually don't have any cards 7 or higher. I do have 0s, though. I presume that this is the final, I presume that this is the final world, and if I don't use them here, where will I use them? Let's see. I got 2 paths. And I don't know if one is better than the other. So let's go this way to begin with and see what happens. No longer just intermissions. I'm not sure what you mean by that, actually. You know, it didn't actually occur to me until just now that chaining an elixir at the end of a slide means it's much less likely to actually get interrupted. But now that I've done it, it makes perfect sense. Oh, lots of little guys. Love to see it. I can zap them pretty easy. They just pop. Those guys are less little. And they weaponize rotation. I must be wary of them. The way that they creep around me is a little bit creepy. Did you miss anything not meaningfully? Mostly just some random commentary and a few rooms of Castle Oblivion. They all look like this, so meaningfully, you haven't missed much. I also realized that putting low value cards at the end of a slide makes it easier to get them out. Which legitimately hadn't occurred to me until, like, right now. And they're dead. I was actually aiming for that Heartless's skull, but I'll take this. These guys are annoying, but they're not immune to Simba, which is why I brought Simba. Get bonked, nerd. I feel like every time I get caught out by those guys at the top of the ladder. It brings me a small amount of joy every time I hit them with my single zero value keyblade. Like, I've been mandated to include this, and you're gonna get the business end of it. Oh, it's like when you pick up a cat and they don't like it, and then they kick you with their back legs. Fun fact, when a cat does that, they're trying to disembowel you. It's also like the rationale behind, when they like grab like a plush toy or whatever, and then they kick it a bunch of times with their back legs. It has triggered their hunting instincts and they're trying to disembowel it. Have I tried this slide I got when I entered the castle? I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but no, I have not. In order to use that, I would need to reorder my decks, and I don't want to, so I won't. No, I'll give you any Keyblade. I'm pretty sure I didn't get that, unless you're talking about Trinity. I might have gotten Trinity. Yeah, if you're talking about Trinity, then I got it, but I haven't used it. Nor will I go out of my way to. Ooh, Spellbinder. Pretty good, good for it. Let's do Martial Waking. You're a fool among fools to show your face here, traitor. Traitor? I don't know what you're talking about. Why did you let her go? You and your cursed meddling. He was ours. The Keyblade Master could have been our slave. Right, your big plan. You use Naminé to rewrite Sora's memory piece by piece. He becomes her puppet. Then, using Naminé and Sora, you and Larxene overthrow the organization. Did I get it right? Because that would make you the traitor, Malexia, not me. But you eliminated Vexen. Yeah, come to think of it, so what? All I did was sweep the garden, and I had to be sure that you two trusted me. I see, a double agent. You've been investigating our conspiracy from the start. Moving on, I believe you ordered me to rid us of our traitors. I always follow orders, Marluxia. No, if nothing else, he's aura farming. And I have to respect that. As somebody who has been known to aura farm. Like, respect, like, you know? Game Champ pronounces that name differently? Interesting. At least a good number of these are really cheap and not color locked. Most of the XG turns into SH. I mean, that is like how you would actually do it, is the thing. But I think Kingdom Hearts is like weird about it. Oh, that bounty was like extra balls. Alright. I think they realize that they can like juke behind me to avoid Simba. Okay, those are gone. So, Donald Goofy Keyblade, you say? Let's see what this does. Oh, that's actually not bad. What do you know? Very fancy animation. Also, interesting path. The immediate and very rude belly punch. You know, in hindsight, it's a good thing that enemy cards can't interrupt a reload. And there they go. Simba really was what this deck needed. Oh my word, 99. Okay. So I need exactly 1 from a blue card. I've got that. Exactly 3 from a red card. I got that. 99. I don't think I can fill that with 0. No, I cannot. So I just need big numbers now. I don't have a huge number of big numbers. So I might just have to farm for a bit. You get a cap of map cards without getting a 1 of any color? That's a yikes. Well, luckily I had the specific one that I needed. Now I just need a quantity. Rude. Die. You too. Die. Almighty Darkness. Interesting. Gonna feed that to the ball later. Did I say wall? I meant door. Same thing, though. It's in my way. How many Simbas do I have left? Enough. There we go, problem solved. Oh, Trinity Limit doesn't seem all that good, actually. Anyway. Looming Darkness. We can at least start beating this. Yeah, I genuinely just need to farm cards. Not a great feeling, but here we are. I considered farming cards off camera, but I was like, no, surely I won't need to do that. Oh well. Get more cards in case I need them later. I sure hope that there's no later. There was like that one door that I think wanted 33 in all 3 colors that I just never did. And this is like that, but it's color agnostic. Get bonked, nerd. I really should be putting everything into... I really should be putting everything into hit points at this point. I should probably also be using my 0 cards to open doors, since I need my number cards to open the big door. Definitely doesn't help that, like, almost every encounter in here is magic immune, so I have to use Simba, which is not very fast. Or make a physical slide deck? I don't wanna. This is like a pain to set up. Guarded Trove. Wait, was that a Mickey card? Now, surely that was like a high potion. Oh, that was rude. It exploded, nerd. Alright. I guess we're just gonna be farming for a bit. So I suppose I will talk about my day. I mostly just spent all day, in Blender, figuring out how to make air physics work. And other sorts of physics, like ear physics. Very important. Did I figure it out? Yes, I did. It's slightly annoying because... Oh, Aqua, hi. It's slightly annoying because what I'm doing is I'm using an add-on for Blender, so that I can export VRM directly from Blender without having to put it through Unity. But that means that there are certain things that, like, I can't do with Blender's usual speed. It's kind of hard to clarify without getting, like, into details that I feel wouldn't make a lot of sense to somebody who didn't already know them. But, like, imagine being able to, like, add a bunch of stuff to a list, normally. But then in this particular case, you have to do it, like, one by one. Also, thank you for the head pats. I appreciate them. If I ever get, like, really big and popular, I might, like, build a robot that actually pets me on the head IRL when I get a head pat reading. I totally could. It wouldn't be that hard. Oh, oops. I meant to use Trinity there, but I kinda burnt my goofies. Oh well. I hear a siren in the background. On one hand, it's kind of loud and annoying. On the other hand, usually that means somebody's having a really bad night and I should be sympathetic. Another thing that I did today was go outside on an errand. And I successfully resisted the urge to get a poutine from a takeout place. But the downside of that is now I don't have a poutine, and I'm kind of hungry and wishing I had one. Yeah, like, I'm not sure if it's like an ambulance siren or like a police siren or like a fire truck siren. It didn't sound like a fire truck siren. Fire trucks usually have like a loud horn beyond just the siren. You're brewing oolong tea? I've never had that, personally. My initial forays into tea were not very fruitful. Though I have been told by tea drinkers that my problem was my choice of tea. Because what I did was I went for a green tea first, And the problem with green tea is that it tastes how boring feels. At least that's how I felt about it. So it didn't really leave much of an impression on me. Okay, I want to save high values where possible. The Moogle is giving me weapons. I wonder if they're trying to imply something. Yeah, I've heard decent things about, what's it called? Other types of tea. Like Earl Grey and so on and so forth. I like how I'm buying cards as if I'm going to use any of them. Like, I got like a sampler of various fruit teas and then I just never made any of them. I really should try them at some point. Lots of elixirs, love to see them. Sadly, this is not actually a Final Fantasy and I can't actually carry 99 of them into battle. At least not without a lot more card points. Bag teas are open. I'm pretty sure they're bagged. If only the Moogles sold map cards. My previous beverage of choice used to be hot chocolate. Like, there were plenty of streams that I just had a hot chocolate. However, it turns out that hot chocolate has lactose in it. So it was, causing problems. And, like, now I know that if I have it in moderation, it's fine, but, like, there's still a bit of trauma at play there. Where it's like, oh, my tummy hurt it a lot, and I don't want it to do that again. Gosh, I need so many more cards. I really shouldn't be avoiding encounters, it's just my brain is in the, oh, these take a long time and I don't want to do them mode. So I'm kind of instinctively weaving around them. 11 nines, I will just get that as a drop right now. Yeah, they really are... Stop it. They really are getting the hang of getting in my way. Both physically and metaphorically. Or I suppose I should say literally. I didn't actually mean to use Goofy there, I wanted to use an elixir, but like, I can't be mad at the results. getting bullied by a trash mob. There we go. When in doubt, club them over the head. You just want to go down and then up and to the left. I may as well find out what's at the other end of this. Yeah, Spamming Thunder absolutely is getting the job done. Until I run into enemies that are outright immune to magic. Then I have to yell at them a lot. I'll see us not counting these guys who hide in the ground and are kind of very annoying about it. Almighty Darkness, 1. I need high numbers, not low numbers. What was my reaction to Neo Shadows? I don't know what a Neo Shadow is. Speaking of enemies immune to dark, or immune to magic. Buff ants? I don't think I've seen any buff ants. Those are the long antenna that scurry under the floor. That's what an ant looks like to you? Where in the world do you live? That ants look like that. I don't ever want to go there. I don't want to get bench pressed by an ant. I sure hope this doesn't count as magic. Oh, that got the job done. We take those. But yeah, when I saw the big guys, I don't think I had a reaction in particular. I was just like, oh yes, more food for the blender. As for me, the biggest ant I've ever seen, on a couple of occasions... Oh, this is just a dead end. Or is it? It probably is. I question the purpose of this room. The biggest ant I've ever seen, I don't know if it was like a queen or what, but like, one day after it had like rained, on a concrete pathway, I saw a really, really, really big ant with a very, very large abdomen. And like it kind of looked like what I presume a Queen Ant looks like, but like, I'm not sure. Yeah, must have gotten like flooded out of her anthill. Oh, there goes Trinity. There are also oil bugs that look similar. Don't Google it. I will not, don't worry. There are people on this planet who really like bugs. I am not one of them. Oh, I don't want a premium. Ooh, new sight. Mega Flare. Incinerate all enemies in a wide area. Mushu Fire Fire. Oh, that's not getting used. Mega Flare is the Bahamut attack, isn't it? I think so. It depends on which version of Bahamut. How much progress have I made? Let's see. Not as much as I would like, if I'm being perfectly honest. I do remember that, like, a while ago, when Kingdom Hearts 3 came out, a lot of people were freaking out because Donald used Zeta Flare. And just, like, casually became the strongest caster in Final Fantasy. Because nobody else has ever used a tiered spell that came even close to Zeta. Almighty Darkness. Nice, nice. You read the Christmas record of your town? Nice. Maybe I should replace that 0-cost spell or attack with like a 9, so that it doesn't get interrupted like that. Super Cozy, 100 people or less. I would love it if I could shop at places that only had 100 people or less in them. corner sounds like a lot. It depends on like how big the building is. Neo Shadow. You know, I do most of my grocery shopping at the grocery store that the parent company has a monopoly on in this area, so it's the only one. So I'm sharing space with everybody who wants groceries, so it's usually kind of cramped. Okay, definitely putting a 9 Kingdom Key in there. I think I'll keep the 0. I'll just also put in a 9. Now those are gone. I can do this again. Wonderful. Some buildings in your town are 800 years old. Nice. Where I live, they're opposite. Most of the buildings aren't older than like a couple of 100 years because back during, I think it was World War II, this city exploded, which leveled most of the buildings. And there's a 0. I'm not exaggerating, by the way, it actually exploded. And I forgot to put a 9 in, hold on. SMH doxing me like that. Let's see. Need to take 15 CP's worth of card out of this deck. I kind of haven't been using this at all, so let's just get rid of that. Yeah, this is fine. Now if I get Trinity, I can combine it with the 9 to almost guaranteed outrank anything that they try to do to break it, even if Donald and Goofy are both 0. Yes, I live in a city called Halifax in Nova Scotia. It was a very important port during one war or another. I used to know this, but I forgot because it's not actually important to day-to-day life. And there was a French munitions ship that caught fire in the middle of the harbor. And exploded. And because the people who, it's like the sailors from that ship were, on shore, but they only spoke French, so they see the ship on fire, and everybody's, standing around gawking, and then you have, a bunch of French sailors, screaming things in French, and, running around and, tackling people to the ground. And everybody's just like, what's going on? And then it exploded, and leveled the city. It is now known as a heritage moment, which is presumably what people of ye olden times called bruh moments. Oh, 8, that's a very big number, I like that. That's it, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Much to the dismay of these Heartless, who are nonetheless going to try their luck. It's okay, wherever they end up, they can tell fake Riku that, like... Honestly, his efforts weren't that bad in comparison. Give Donald. Give. Stop. I'm getting bullied. That's another Goofy. Not useful. I think I mentioned this before, like, when I was playing, like, Kingdom Hearts 1. But every now and then I do still think about the fact that, like, Pluto and Goofy share a species. You think it's like an opt-in thing? Like, you can either choose to be, like, a member of society or a pet. It's like, just get on one or two, just, like, get on 2 or 4 legs, we'll take it from there. Oh, 6. We take those. I feel like I'm not gonna get a lot of high-value cards on account of having not gotten a lot of high-value cards. So I will settle for, like, mid-value cards. Get out of the ground, you goober. I can't kill you while you're down there. There we go, much better. I fear what the entry requirement for whatever door comes after this might be. It's like another big grind. Like, if nothing else, this is probably gonna make sure that, like, my level's up to par. Pretty sure this is the end, even though it's only key of beginnings. Awesome. Open every other door to make sure I can beat everything to this one. As far as I'm aware, I have. Like, not counting, like, reward cards from, like, earlier floors, but, like, I'm not gonna bother going and getting those. Why don't I beat everything to this one? Because I don't know for certain that this is the last card, or this is the last door of the game. If I knew that for certain, I would feed everything to it. Chat has been wrong before. Evil Darkness, nice. Did that buff one just try to, like, backflip kick me? If so, I respect the attempt. After all, styling on your opponents is the essence of martial arts. Self-reflection and, like, inner mastery is just what people who lack style say to cope. I do appreciate a good limit break that just kills everything. Though I would argue that that's what Zen Tetsukin should have been. If I've never actually seen Fist of the North Star. Like, I know memes from it, just through, like, cultural osmosis. I've never actually seen it. The premise never really appealed to me. I'm not a fan of, like, post-apocalyptic settings. Want to get this any attack engaged that does dot damage on enemy until it falls off and never falls off until it dies. In World of Warcraft, at least around the time that I last played, Affliction Warlocks could get a talent that made their main dot permanent. So you would cast it once, and it would just keep taking until the enemy died. And that was actually the only way to solo a certain raid before the numbers just got so inflated that you could walk in and punch his face clean off. Because one of his mechanics of that boss is he would pick random raid members to encase in crystal that had to be broken from the outside. But if you were in there alone, you just get stuck there until the instance timer ran out. So what you would do is you would go in as a warlock, hit him with a permanent dot, get frozen in place, and then like go watch anime for an hour, and then you'd come back and you'd be dead. Watch along when? I don't know if I'd be allowed to do that. I feel like streaming any anime would get me in trouble. If I were to stream an anime, it would probably be Katana Katari. Like, that's high on my list of anime that I think everybody should watch. Watch-alongs are still in just stream commentary? Oh, gotcha. I've never actually participated in a watch-along. In that case, who knows? Maybe Katana Katari watch-along. I like how I took the longest route possible through my deck for no reason. There's Tunnel. Once I finish charging my attack, you two are toast. You'll regret it. There we go. Amazon has an integrated feature for making sure it's at the same time, yes, but that only works if everybody has Amazon Prime. And it only works if the thing is on Amazon Prime. I remember looking into Amazon Prime a while back and being like, this has nothing interesting on it. It's got like The Boys and that's it. Who knows, maybe they expanded their catalog. That said, as far as I'm aware, you can't legally watch Katana Katari anywhere. You can only get like second-hand Blu-rays. Also, just because it's come up a few times when I mention Katana Katari, it's by the same author as Monogatari, but has no relation to that series whatsoever. Like, it's got like a similar, like, vibe, but not the same setting, not the same plot. Is my shaft? I don't know. I would have to double check. I'm terrible at, like, knowing directors or actors or whatever. Like, I'll mention a movie and then somebody will be like, oh, how did you like, you know, what's her face's performance in it? And I'm just like, who? Which character did she play? Or like, how do you feel about this director's style? And I'm just like, what movies did he make? Studio that made Madoka Magica? I want to say no. I don't think so. Not confident though. Also Monogatari? Maybe yes then. Oh, 0. Lovely. That'll help me get into the door that requires 99. Nothing else, my HP stocks are increasing. I never needed more health. I would much rather be through this door than have twice as much health. And before final boss beats my butt, beats my tail, so I decide to grind more, won't happen. The other day I fought Hollow Knight without a dash. If I get into that final boss room, I'm not leaving until it's dead. You're getting early Toho vibes from the music? I kind of feel like I know what you're talking about. Like this sort of like backing beat. Like the bit that goes like that. I could totally see that being like in the background as you're flying towards the stage 1 boss. You know, I fully expect that the final boss of this game is just gonna get sent Tetsukin into submission. And then probably do some spammy stuff to make it take way longer than it needs to. That seems to be how boss fights in this game go. Looming Darkness 7? How close are we now? I'm actually just gonna feed this everything. We can equip this one. The experience holding me up? What? Not sure what you're looking at. Oh, the singular experience point, making it so that I couldn't move on, yeah. Larxene paid the price for disloyalty. You're next, Marluxia. In the name of the organization you betrayed, I will annihilate you. Go ahead then, strike. What kind of game is this? You think cowering behind Namine will stop me? Think again, your little mascot can keep you company in the void. Farewell, Marluxia. Oh, I think not. Are you listening, Sora? Huh? Axel is willing to harm Namine just to get at me. Destroy him. Well, Sora, Marluxia made you his puppet after all. Never. After I finish you, he's next. Huh. Listen, Sora, we've got more in common than you think. I'd rather not fight you. But I do have a reputation to think of. Oh, there goes like all of my bones. This is just like, there we go. About not needing health? Yeah, I don't. I got heals. At least unless he does that. This is fine. Did I just get comboed? Yeah. This is fine. Oh no, I gotta sit through the cutscene again. Oh, thank you for the hydration. I do have a bunch of spare CPs since I leveled up a bunch after making that Centeskin deck. So I could maybe stick a few more heals in there. Ow, my bones. Well, on the one hand, he did get an elixir off. On the other hand, I kind of pushed him to using an elixir really fast, so... I think I spotted one elixir in there. So if he either uses that or if I cut it in half, it's gone. Dangerous acronym? Yes, I know. I'm pretty sure it is card point, yes. I have no interest in any other things that share that acronym. I want to see that elixir of yours. I'll cut your individual cards if I have to. That's the elixir I want to destroy. Granted, I've got more recovery than he does, so like I could just let him use it and then it would also be gone. Because he doesn't have a huge stockpile of them or anything. I just have a thought. His elixir's a 9, so like maybe I could bait him into using it by using one of my 8 ranked heals. Okay, I'm just gonna start cutting his individual cards now. I'll get through his health bar eventually. Thankfully in this game, Elixir doesn't actually heal health. So if he does get it off, I don't have to worry about it. Or I don't have to worry about that. Oh, there's the teleport spam. It'll be a long one? Yeah. Not much I can do about that, though. HP sponges be like. Speaking of elixirs, if I popped my own, I could get my second heal back, I believe. I actually didn't mean to use that, but whatever. I could do Trinity Limit now, technically. But he does have a bunch of 0 rank cards, so that might not go too well. I'll give it a shot, see what happens. I bet it gets cancelled by a 0. That feels like what's going to happen. There it goes. Rip. I don't actually have any elixirs left, whoops. I had a big opening when he was reloading. Trinity Limit takes a really long time to come out. See? Oh, well, that's all his stuff back. That was his last elixir, so... he has nothing left after this. I just have to not be a dummy and burn my last heal. Not the position I want to be in, not gonna lie. This is fine. Well, it's kind of not, but... I actually kind of don't want to cut too many of his cards if he's not using slights, because if he gets too many zeros, then he can interrupt stuff, like my heal, which I don't want him to be able to interrupt. Like that? Yes. Yeah, I don't need more help. More help would not stop this from happening. I would still need to recover the same amount. It would just be longer and take longer between heals. Well, this is pretty much how the fight's gonna go, I think. I might try and sneak a higher ranked elixir in instead of that, like, 1 rank that I got there. I also do have a Sentetsuken loaded, so I think I'll use that on his 9 rank card if he uses that again, that I can see. Because that's like the only thing he has that can, like, block my heal for a relatively extended length of time. Plus it'll put 2 of them back into the rotation, so I can span longer between needing to reload. I still deserve more better than this? No, he doesn't. I will slowly bludgeon him to death with my house keys, and then I will forget his name. Like, who knows, maybe he's got like a tragic backstory that gets revealed in Kingdom Hearts 2, but right now he's just kind of another guy in a coat that's kind of just been like a smug jerk. Oh well, it's almost over. Then I gotta fight what's-his-face. Marluxia, I think his name was. Almost like I don't get a chance to change my deck between encounters. Which I wouldn't put past this game, honestly. And he's dead. R.I.P. Axel. Oh, and a level. You're not half bad. Looks like it was worth saving your hide after all. Saving me? What do you mean? Sorry, I'd hate to kill the suspense. Axel. Oh, awesome. Oh, that's the false... That's the false bounty from earlier. Looks like we go this way now. You know, I've got very little patience for, oh, all will be revealed in due time type stuff. Make a potion. While I'm thinking about it, let's put at least an elixir into this one. There we go. And maybe another one just to be safe. Yeah, like that. There we go. So, you've destroyed Axel. You have my thanks, Sora. Or perhaps I should thank the power of the Keyblade. How I long to make it my own and have the organization at my mercy. Get real, Marluxia. Let Namine go. You cannot win as long as she is in my hands. Namine, erase Sora's memory. But if I do that, why does she not simply erase Marluxia's memory, solve every problem at once? Yes, if you uproot the memories that you planted, then Sora's heart will collapse and all of his memories will be torn asunder. Okay, so it needs prep time. Sora's heart? Collapse? I'd prefer the Keyblade Master unmarred, but even a writhen heart can be rebuilt with time. Sora will yet be my slave. Do it, Namine. Obliterate his memory. No. Sora forgave me even though I deceived him. I could never break his heart. I don't care what you do to me. I won't hurt Sora. Then you'll pay the price. Do what he says, Namine. I don't care. Erase my memory. Sora, what are you saying? Who am I going to look after if I don't have you? Do it, Namine. Erase my memories. Break my heart. I'll still have my promise. I'll still protect you. Sora. I don't need my memory to take on Marluxia. Yeah, even if Sora forgets, we won't. All we gotta do is remember for him. Or Namine could take like 2 steps to the left and then Sora could just like shank Marluxia. But whatever. With everybody else's memories, I can piece my own together again in no time. Ignorant fool, if Namine destroys your memory, you'll be naught but a lifeless shell. Your heart will be unable to feel, to care, just like that pathetic imitation of Riku. Guess again. Yeah, like that. Nope, thank you for the rotation. It cannot be. Riku? No, not Riku. Just somebody's pet project. But you're an empty shell. You've been stripped of all you had. What did I ever have? My body and heart are fake. But there's one thing you can't take from me anyway, even if it is a lie. I will protect Namine, phantom promise or not, it's my promise. Know your place. You would chain your heart with false memories, cast your heart's freedom aside. You turn from the truth because your heart is weak. You cannot defeat me. Death Scythe. Edgy. Oh, he's got a lot of health. But 3 fewer cards. What's his face from Bleach did it better, I'm sorry. This guy's very anime. Very nothing personnel, kid. I should be keeping an eye on this guy's elixirs, because as I... There we go. -1. I was gonna say, as I've spotted, he's caught at least one. Luckily I caught it. I think I spotted one more elixir in there. I'll have to pay closer attention the next time he reloads. I think he's only got the one elixir. Alright. I can work with that. And with those two, I could use Trinity, technically. I don't have a high-ranked sword to use it with, though. Maybe I should put, like, a single 9 Keyblade in here. So I can Trinity with it. Here's his elixir. He's opted not to use it this cycle. Nope. None of that for you. Alright. Now he's got no juice left in the tank. The tank of juice. As opposed to gas, which is what most people have. Like, he's a weird, like, anime guy. And then there's a non-zero chance that he just straight up kills me with damage, which would not be fun for me. There we go. I'll sacrifice a Zero Blade to get that off. Ow, my bones. I'm missing all of my attacks. Rude. Very rude. And I'm dead. Rip. That's annoying. If I do put in a 9 blade, it won't stop it from getting broken by a 0, which is annoying. Do you hear on my bones? Maybe? I don't recall if I actually said that. Yeah. We'll swap out 1 0 for a 9. I forgot that I had enemy cards in here, not gonna lie. This would have been really useful, actually. Oh well. You made bread with apricot jam? That sounds lovely. Closest thing to that I had today was waffles with maple syrup. This game could definitely benefit from a skip cutscene button. Just win? Perhaps I will. Also, where is Riku during this whole sequence? Like, surely he should be backing me up. No, none of that. I said no. No slides for you. I said no. You need my permission to do that, and you don't have it. I thought I only had 2 cards loaded. Whoops. Away with all of those. Oh, that was a mistake. Whoops. Oh, this is irritating. Getting high-value cards broken by 0 cards is only fun when I do it. He got all of his stuff back, that's annoying. And that's my bones. That's what would have happened if I'd lost, which didn't happen. Canonically. He's got, what was it, 2 elixirs? I gotta get through? I've now got like the mental image of like Sora parrying the side with like this fantastic cannon, cutting it in half, and it's actually kind of cool. Like an attack straight out of Metal Gear Rising, where like they come down on you with like the big sword, and it's just like, no, you're kibble now. Oh, I did not want to use that one. Oh well. I'll just have to reload that one later. Use that elixir, I dare you. Get all my stuff back. How many elixirs did he have again? I think it was 2. That's 1, that's 2. Nope, that's 1. He's got 1 elixir. That was a rhetorical question because I was preparing to count how many he had. But thank you for answering anyway. Oh, well, there goes his other one. The good news is now they're gone. The bad news is I'm below half health. Do it. Getting myself interrupted is kind of annoying. Just kind of, just a little. I feel like I might need to wait for him to, like, reload, and then fire it off. I'm trying to dodge, there we go. Oh, he just reloaded super fast, huh. This is fine. He's got no elixirs left. I should take advantage of that shamelessly. I don't have enough cards for a Zantetsuken without reloading. Also, I can't help but notice that Donald and Goofy said that they'd like be here to back me up, and they're conspicuously absent. Oh hey, Goofy, there he is. I was just complaining about you. Oh. I think I missed that one, which kinda sucks. Where'd you get all those high value cards from? I thought I got those all. Well, now they're cut. I still think that it's a bit of a shame that I can't just, like, straight up destroy his deck so he can't do anything but reload. That's a duplicate Goofy, okay. Extremely inefficient even if I could. I mean, so. There's the third Goofy. And this one's a 0. Is he just not going to load anything else into his slate? Because if so, I'm not complaining. I feel like he's waiting for a card that he's not gonna get. Which is fine by me. In which case, maybe I should be focusing on cutting his magic cards. Because assuming that he can pull infinite zeros out of his butt like Riku can, they're probably just attacks. All this said, we're gonna take a 5-minute break here. Normally the stream would end here, but I feel like I can finish this tonight. So 5-minute break, please use this time to refill your beverage, go to the bathroom. Anything that would take you about 5 minutes. I will see you shortly. I return. Hopefully to finish this off. I could probably get away with eating an elixir to just have more stabs between reloads. Because it's not like he's got elixirs. I don't have to worry about keeping up with his regen. The zero breaks. They bug me just a little bit. I'll wait for him to reload. Like that. But I feel like he could just skip his reload, because I didn't see him stand still in charge. He just decided that he had new cards. Yeah, he keeps doing it. He keeps, like, getting his cards back before he's actually completed a full reload. Like, he did it right there. Oh well, as long as he doesn't, like, get his cards back, it's fine. Flipping back to the cards that he didn't spend. I wasn't aware that bosses could do that. As far as I could tell, they could just go through to the end, or reload. Alright, I'm gonna cut his high value cards up. Like that one. Goodbye. And by high value, I mean the ones that can block my heal. You know, his animation only flicks one way, so I assumed that it was a one-way thing. And now he's doing the stalling thing that bosses in this game like to do. Guess Riku had to learn it from someone. He does hit very hard. Probably should have cut that one, actually. Oh well. Luckily that didn't happen. You know, I'm just gonna hope that, like, pulling infinite zeros out of his butt was just a Riku thing, and I'm just gonna start cutting everything this guy has. See what happens. Worked out surprisingly well, actually. Except for the part where it got interrupted. Now I need to get a recovery card off without it getting interrupted. Which is easier said than done. There we go. I shall cut everything you've owned. Including that one. And that one. And that one. Oh, there's a Donald. All my bones. All my other bones, even though I was way behind him. I could technically do Trinity Limit. It'd be very funny if it instant killed him. But I actually have to land it for that to happen. Okay, I've got exactly one more Santetsuken in me. All my bones. All my other bones. All my third bones. Where was I? I shall just keep cutting his deck. And like not in the way that you're supposed to. Until I win. The joke is that cutting a deck is when you like pick up half of it and then like put it on top of the other half. It's the thing that you do like when your opponent shuffles their deck in like a competitive card game to make sure that they're doing fair play, because like even if hopefully even if they did like stack the deck somehow, you're gonna pick it up at a random spot and pseudo randomize it. All my bones. Big heal, love to see it. I don't have Donald yet, so I can't do Trinity. I also don't have enough zeros to do a Santetsuken. So I need to sneak in a high potion. And I think the best way to do that is to wait for him to complete a reload. Ow, my bones. Like that. Oh, he's still got so many cards. I think I just have to start beating him. Oh well, he can't use the slides. That's fine by me. Hey, Donald. And there's the 0. I knew that was coming. Oh well, I shall simply bludgeon him. The best of my ability. Maybe I'll get another chance to try, who knows? Need another Donald for that. His health is getting surprisingly low, I will say. But where his health is surprisingly low, mine is concerningly low. Hey, juggled, nerd. There we go, problem solved. It hit a bunch of times in a row, nerd. Like that. Ow, my bones. Ow, my other bones. Oh, that's irritating. That's more than a little irritating, not gonna lie. Like, I don't think that this is a skill issue, I think this is just... the mechanics are a bit jank. Like, if it was just a skill issue, I could be like, oh, I just need to get better. You going to bed? Rest well. Ow, my bones. We're health nice and high so that we can't get 100 to 0'd again. Huh, he actually didn't let me get away with that, and it didn't do a lot of damage. I'm disappointed. Oh well. I was kind of hoping that would just end the fight. His health is very low, which is where I want it. Sub 1 bar, love to see it. It seems that in the end, the solution was being spammier than he was. I did it! It took a few tries. A few shenanigans. But I did do it. Level up as if there's any more game after this. We got him. You could say that. But what you destroyed was just an image of me, no more than a petty imitation. So what? Ah, another trick. The real Merluxia isn't there? Yes. Whatever's on the other side is powerful. I can feel it. Well, then we better hurry up and stop it. Let's do this. Riku, keep Namine safe. Me? You don't want to? Alright. Okay, so I thought that was going to be the end of the game, but clearly wasn't. But I should have ended stream half an hour ago. Oh well. Instead, I'll end it here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it each and every time. Next scheduled stream is going to be on Sunday. The game is going to be Pikmin 2. Next time I'm playing this is going to be on Monday, I suppose. I hope you have a wonderful night, and I hope to see you again. Good night.